Well, folks, today we're going to be talking about Mario Kart World because Nintendo dropped a massive asset developer that is breaking some very shocking news about the game. And holy crap, does this look jam-packed. Also, for those that hope that this was maybe playable on Switch, no. Also, the fact that they said it's exclusive, we now know why it's not playable on Switch. Look, this asset developer series here is massive. They have 5 of the main people behind it. The team sounds like it was really, really huge. And my gosh, this thing's been in development for nearly 8 years. It's kind of crazy, but before we dive into that, I want to remind you we are giving away 2 Nintendo Switch 2 Mario Kart World bundles. That's right. Right now, you can go ahead and enter through the link down in the description or in the pinned comment. We'll be drawing the winners next week, and we'll be giving away one more system via a live stream, but we'll be doing that during launch week of the Nintendo Switch 2. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this. And how I chose to break this down is this is very, very long. There's 4 parts to this, and when I originally was going to do this, I was just going to go through it, read it, and yeah, it took me like an hour, and I decided, you know what, let's not do that. Instead, let's show you some Mario Kart World gameplay, both new and old, some from the interview, some just Nintendo release, some maybe from the Switch 2 experience, however long it takes, and I'm going to go through all of my notes. 2 pages of notes I have on this, all brand new information about the development of Mario Kart World and features and stuff in the game. And you guys can just sit back and enjoy some Nate here from Nintendo Prime talking about Mario Kart World. So, the development of the game began in 2017, prototyping the concept of an open world Mario Kart game. That's an idea they had from the very beginning. Went into full development by the end of 2017 after the prototypes proved the concept of an open world Mario Kart game was doable. They felt they hit the peak of what traditional Mario Kart can be with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So they felt they really needed to change it up. And I feel like we're going to see that again with something like Super Smash Bros. This generation, whenever that comes out. Anyways, the game was going to be called Mario Kart 9, but that was only if they stuck with the traditional course route of the past. And that should let you know, hey, while Mario Kart Tour is part of the series, they don't consider it a numbered game. So yeah, Mario Kart 9 could have been a thing if they would have stuck with the traditional way they wanted to do it, but they didn't do that. Because they wanted to have an open world, they actually came up with the name Mario Kart World in their original concept artwork. So it's been there practically from the very beginning of development. This wasn't one of those things where they came up with the name late. They completely had to remake all the tools and programs they used to make prior Mario Kart games while maintaining the quality of output the old tools had. So you can kind of think of this like they rebuilt an entirely new engine essentially for the game from the ground up. That's not the exact same thing here, but an engine is part of the tools and programming. So the fact that they had to pretty much scrap all their old tools and build completely new ones, that is impressive. And that obviously goes into the length it takes to develop a game. Now, for art direction, they wanted to get away from the more grounded, futuristic styling of Mario Kart 8 and kind of go back to the more playful art style of Super Mario Kart, which is why you're seeing a difference in the visuals. They knew 24 racers was the way to go very early in development. However, this wasn't because they were trying to build the concept around 24 racers. It was because they knew tracks were going to be longer in this game and the world was going to be larger. And they felt like 12 racers sometimes made it feel like you weren't really racing anyone when everyone would get spread out on the track. So 24 was the result of the actual concept of the game rather than 24 racers being a driving force behind the course design. Now remember, the game started out on Switch. That was the plan. It was going to be a Switch Mario Kart game, and 24 players was actually a massive challenge. They had to cut so many elements to make it work. They thought about making the frame rate 30 frames per second just to have everything function properly on Nintendo Switch. However, once they realized how much of their vision they would have to give up, including like how animated the characters would be to make it work on Switch, they collectively decided, nah, we ain't gonna sacrifice anything. Why sacrifice our vision? So the decision was made to shift the game over to Nintendo Switch 2. The booster course for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was also decided to exist at that time to kind of help bridge the gap in terms of the time it was going to take to get Mario Kart World completed. When they made the decision to switch to Switch 2 in 2020, they didn't even have dev units yet, but they were given target specs. So for a while, they were just working on the game based off of what those specs were. They did naturally, of course, receive dev kits the exact moment there was even one made and given to Nintendo. They were like the team that got it first. The decision to go to Switch 2 was a great sense of relief for the whole development team. No longer did they have to cut features or graphics, and instead they could actually add to them and do more. Now, Free Roam, we're getting to some music stuff here. It uses a jukebox for the music with over 200 songs. And a lot of these songs are remixes of Mario music. They really felt like that was the way to go in a Mario-based world. They also added in weather effects and a day and night cycle because they wanted to make it feel like that world was alive. Now, there's some interesting stuff with this because there are some sections of the game that are going to focus more on night or day, depending on what the devs want to emphasize in the scene, because it's roughly a 24-minute day and night cycle, but day will last longer in some, night will last longer in some, kind of based on the visual elements they want people to experience when they're racing those tracks. Now, rail riding and wall riding, that stuff came into existence due to the long straight roads that exist in the game in some parts, and they refer to them internally as tricks, and it was kind of based on the concept of, hey, you can have the same area over and over, but it becomes more unique with the more tricks you can do, sort of like with a skateboard. So they were looking at the BMX sort of world being like, hey, this really adds a lot of variability to how you enjoy skateboarding without changing the track. Hey, why don't we add some tricks in ourselves to add some variability? If every variation of driving path and courses is actually counted up, and this is something they said this out loud because they obviously know they've emphasized a lot in this interview that this game does not function the way prior Mario Kart game. It's not like there's traditional courses. While there is cups and stuff, the game is much bigger than that. And so they said, but if you wanted to count things the traditional way on how many exact courses are there, including variations of courses that would be entirely new courses in other games, there's over 100. So that's actually larger than the 96 we have in Mario Kart 8 World. So to act like there's no content in this game is pretty wild when there's actually maybe more content, especially at launch, than any Mario Kart game ever. It's just they don't count things in a traditional way anymore because they're not making a traditional Mario Kart game. They actually feel like this is the next generation of what Mario Kart's going to become, an evolution for the series that's going to set up future Mario Kart games down the road. Now, they're not saying this is the best version of that because obviously they felt like the best version of the old way was Mario Kart 8. It took them 8 times to get it right. But yeah, they're saying this is the beginning of what they feel is the future of Mario Kart. Now, food was an early idea because driving out in the real world, you do encounter lots of various food spots along the way that fit different cultures and settings. And originally, the costumes weren't actually part of the food. You used coins to buy them from a store. The stores were in the world and you would just drive up to them and shop. But they felt like this really disrupted gameplay, just too much. So they decided to treat food places like drive-thrus that you can eat on the road. And when you eat that food, your costume is changed, kind of like you're on a road trip. Although I don't know, a lot of us are changing our clothes in the car on a road trip while we're driving. Maybe if you're the passenger. But I don't know about while driving. I think I did change a shirt once while driving. And that was, I don't suggest doing that when you're behind the wheel. But, maybe with today's smarter vehicles, maybe they could stay on the road, for 10, 15 seconds while you do it. I don't know. Anyways, a lot of effort by newer programmers on the team were actually put into the water mechanics and the waves and how the waves interact with the player characters. And when you jet ski over everything to really make this feel like a great experience. And yes, they were drawing direct correlation between what they were trying to do and Wave Race 64. So they were using that in development. This is a lot of their newer programmers they tasked with this. And I find that interesting because the new people they added to the team, programming wise, they were like, hey, we want you to master water mechanics. I kind of feel like that's interesting that that's something Nintendo focused on with newer programmers. I don't know if it's just exclusive to this game or if other games, new programmers, one of the first things they learn is, hey, master the programming of water mechanics. But Nintendo definitely loves their water in the game. And if you have seen some of the footage or you've gone hands on and it really felt kind of wave race style when you hit those water sections with the jet skis, there's a reason for that because that was the inspiration behind being able to travel on top of the water. They wanted to do this because it was a massive variance of gameplay from prior Mario Kart games and obviously an homage to the Wave Race series. Now, they also wanted to make sure, despite having all these water mechanics where you ride on top, that you could see the shoal floor visible from above the water when you're in certain areas where, kind of like when you're out in the real world and you have some of those like crystal blue waters and you can kind of see pretty deep down and see the ocean floor and how amazing and awesome that looks in real life. They wanted that to be present in the game, despite the fact that you can ride on top of the water. But it was extremely taxing on the Switch 2's CPU. But they did put a lot of optimization effort into it to make sure that this worked and worked at 60 FPS. As I noted earlier, and maybe I need to emphasize this more, the whole idea of moving this game to Switch 2 was no sacrifices. Any idea they had, they were not going to make an excuse to not have it there and running at the performance level they want. Also, they added road signs, and there's some interconnectivity between the road signs, but the biggest new thing we learned about them is the road signs actually become the stickers that you can customize on your carts. They talked a lot about some other things and gave examples of some of the remixed music like this. And I just got to be honest, overall, this was an amazing interview. There's a lot of intricate details in there. If you're an up-and-coming game developer, you maybe want to pay attention to how their approach to game making is. But this is like the largest Mario Kart ever made. They've spent nearly 8 years developing this game. They switched 3 years into development over to Switch 2, so a majority of development was exclusively on Switch 2. They've been obviously focusing on the ideas behind this game for a long time. They've made more content in this game. They emphasized several times how much content is in this game compared to launching any other Mario Kart game, and I could totally believe that. Like, we all focus on how big Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is. Guys, that game is massive. But if you look at the game when it launched on Wii U, no, it's not. That's not what the game was. And the funny thing is, that's not to say the game when it launched on Wii U is bad. The game when it launched on Wii U was just like any other Mario Kart game. It had the same sort of level of content and detail and everything. It was a great game on Wii U. No one felt like it was an incomplete game. Then they released a DLC pack, and then it came over to Nintendo Switch 2, and then they completely changed the multiplayer, and then they included the DLC, and then boom, they released the Booster Course pack as well. So like, there were multiple rounds of DLC to get Mario Kart 8 Deluxe to as big as it is, and when you count it all together, if you were there from the beginning, you spent over $100 to play Mario Kart 8, and you're getting like all of this for $80. And I'm not going to sit here and try to justify the price for $80, because I think when it comes down to it, $80, that's going to be on the eye of the beholder, just like the quality of this game is going to be on the eye of the beholder. You have to play the game, find out for yourselves if it's worth the money, or read reviews from people you trust that are going to obviously take the money into consideration. I think the price point should always be part of a review. It shouldn't be the primary focus of a game review. It should be focused on the quality of the experience, but obviously price should be a consideration in reviews. And I do think that some reviews tend not to consider price. Some reviews always consider price. But either way, it shouldn't be the crux of the review, but it should be in there somewhere when you're coming to your grand conclusions on if people should buy the game. Because ultimately, while we're ranking games and we're giving them ratings, look, a review's purpose is to let consumers know enough information they need to decide if they should purchase something or not. To me, that's always been the purpose of a review. Anyways, folks, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I am Nathaniel Robojans from Nintendo Prime. There's a couple other Switch 2 news stories floating out there, but we had so much Mario Kart. I just wanted to focus on that for this video. If you love these individual topic, single game focused stuff, let me know. I could do more of this in the future, more deep dives into things. Donkey Kong Bonanza we have coming up, third-party games. I can tell you a little bit of my plans right now for Switch 2's launch. I know people have been very curious. Everything isn't fully fleshed out yet. We are going to be doing a launch live stream at GameStop on when we pick up our system. So it's kind of like a midnight launch stream. It's not going to be like we're going to be playing the system or anything like that, but we are going to be live streaming, picking up the system. GameStop's reportedly doing some sort of launch event as well. I'm trying to get a hold of my GameStop. I'm going to call next week when they have more details. They don't have all the details right now. And try to sort out what what that looks like to see if that 4-hour live stream I plan to do is going to be actually a much longer live stream than that. I won't know until I find out what the details are on that launch event. I'm going to try to see how much they tell me, because they know I'm a content creator. They know I'm going to be live streaming. So they're going to want to know that, hey, this is like good promotion for GameStop, good promotion for Nintendo. What are we doing here? What's the deal with this launch stuff? Let's bring the online world into this experience for people who don't have GameStops or didn't get pre-orders in. And then what I also want to do is get an unboxing video out. So right after I do that, I'm going to be coming home and recording an unboxing video. That unboxing video is basically going to end with me doing a system transfer. System transfer, I suspect, is going to take a little bit of time. And some of that stuff I'll have to cut out because I don't want to see you guys like see my logins to my accounts and all that. But in that unboxing video, we'll include the first boot up of the system. And then it'll have, obviously us going to the system transfer and all that stuff. But it's going to be a fun one. I can't wait to record that. I'm literally recording that at like midnight, basically. I'm going to probably be up to like 2 a.m. making that video. That's going to be going out. And then right at 8 a.m. on June 5th, we're going to be doing an 8-hour live stream sponsored by D-Brand. Thank you so much for sponsoring that stream. And we're going to be going over every question you have. I'm trying to make sure I have everything possible on hand to answer all of your guys' questions live. And I don't just mean answer, show you, right? We're going to be live streaming in 4K so you can see the best possible visuals I can present to you through a live stream of the various games. You got third-party games, you got Nintendo's games, you have the accessories to go over. We have questions to answer about key cards and what happens if you use multiple Switches, because we're going to have multiple Switch 2s. You guys are going to want to know things about game share, so we're going to have our Switch 1s on hand, our multiple Switch 2s, mess around with that. The ability to stream 2 Switch 2s to you at the exact same time in 4K so you guys can see how everything works. Look, I'm planning a really massive stream for that. Still working out the details on how to set all the layouts out for that, because I've never streamed 2 Nintendo Switches at the same time, let alone 2 Switch 2s. We had all new streaming capture equipment for that, so I'm looking forward to doing that. But setting that aside, I'm also going to be doing a first impressions video on June 6th. So that is sort of the content I have lined up for Switch 2 right now that's in the works and going to be planned. The first impressions video obviously is going to have to be made the morning of or the night after or whatever, because my son's got a baseball game on June 5th. So when my stream ends, I'm literally off to a baseball game. But what will be happening is I will be having that first impressions video out the next day, because now I've spent 8 hours plus with the system and can give some first impressions on the system itself, the games, the mechanics, the things I like, the things I don't like, all of that. And then there'll probably be a news video that day as well, because hey, that's what we do here. We got to cover the news. We got to keep up with it. There's probably more news happening, because guess what? June 6th is Summer Game Fest. And yes, folks, I will be live streaming Summer Game Fest. So that first impressions video has to come out before Summer Game Fest. So I'm very, very busy. And that obviously means we're going to have a bunch of live streams over that weekend for Summer Game Fest as well. So the Xbox showcases and Ubisoft and wherever else, some of the indie stuff, you guys know we're going to have a lot of live streams. It's a very, very busy weekend for me. So kind of crazy, because a lot of that busyness takes me away from playing Switch 2 on opening weekend. But it is what it is, right? I'm still going to get to play on my own. Also, I want to get another video out. Like, I know the system's expensive and people might not be buying a lot of games on day one. So I want to show people how to get free games on the system, because there's always free-to-play games. And I want to make sure I get a video out on that, so people who just bought a Switch 2 or are getting a Switch 2 over the summer, if there's not a lot of extra money to spend after getting the system, hey, here's a lot of free experiences you can enjoy, demos of games you can try out that are actually worthwhile demos that give you a significant amount of gameplay, stuff like that. I want to make sure people know how to find all of that in the new revamped Nintendo Switch eShop, so people can hop on that and just enjoy at least getting to play something. I mean, look, the new Fortnite launches day one, so that could be something maybe to check out. So I'm just saying, there's going to be a bunch of free games as well, free demos. I want to make sure people know how to get to. So we're going to make a video about that. But look, there's just so much going on right now with Switch 2 stuff, and that's before we talk about the fact that we're a news channel. So there's going to be news happening the whole time. And the live streams, the reason we're live streaming all those events is I fully suspect there's going to be a bunch of Switch 2 news in those events, especially the Summer Game Fest and Xbox and Ubisoft ones. I think there's going to be a ton of Switch 2 trailers, like Switch 2 logos popping up in trailers. So June's going to be a busy month, man. And that's just like the first week. Can you imagine if there's a Nintendo Direct in June as well? Oh, baby. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am Nathaniel RoboJets, and I'll catch you in the next video.